Hey guys, welcome to my very first YouTube video on my very first YouTube channel. If you clicked on the video, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you're either applying to medical school right now or you intend to sometime in the future. Or you may be just simply bored and looking to watch a random video. But whatever the case may be for you, I'm very happy you're here. In this first video, I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about my own medical school application process and try to give you guys some tips that could be beneficial for helping you prepare for your medical school interview. So to start us off, I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself. My name is Alim. I was born in Turkey. I moved to the States when I was 13 with my mom. And for college, I went to University of Florida. I recently graduated in April of this year, and last year was the first time I applied to medical school. Unfortunately, I didn't get any interviews that year, but what seemed to be a very disappointing chain of events ended up working out perfectly for me because I got a chance to have an entire gap year that I used to do some of the things that I really wanted to do in college but never had time to do. So I started working in a research lab and eventually having my own research project there. I also started working at Shands, which is a hospital here in Gainesville, Florida. I met many more patients, got to interact with more physicians through shadowing. I also did some volunteering at a homeless clinic, and the rest of the time that I had, I just spent it to hang out with my friends who will soon be moving to different states to start their careers or do master's programs and continue school. And I also did some of my hobbies like dancing and running and all of that. So don't fret if you don't get positive results immediately, because this is a long journey. It's frustrating, it's difficult, but whatever may seem very disappointing at the time, I promise you will end up being better for you in some shape or form for the future. So in my case, the gap year ended up being very beneficial for me, and it helped me grow as an applicant and as a human in general. I learned a lot about myself. I got to really question my desire to become a physician because I feel like last year it was more of a reflex. It was automatic. I didn't have to think about it. It was just one of the many steps that medical students do. You know, shadow, volunteer, take the MCAT, apply to medical school. It's such a long list that we don't get to really question what we're doing and why we're doing it at every step. So this was kind of like a pause for me this entire year. I thought about what being a physician means to me a lot, and I decided to apply again the next year. So this June is when this year's application process started, and I sent all my application materials by the end of July. And for some schools, I sent it a little later, like beginning of August or mid-August. This year, I got my first interview invite in the beginning of October. I'm not going to name any schools right now because the application process is still ongoing, but after getting my interview invite, they asked me to schedule that actual interview. And looking at the calendar of interview slots, I picked the one that was the soonest. So that was 2 weeks after I received the invite. And this is my first official tip to you guys. Schedule your interview as soon as you can and pick the closest date to you, because it's a rolling admissions process, first come, first serve, and the sooner they meet you, the sooner that they can actually decide if they want to admit you to their school. And this way you can also feel relief, hopefully, early in the cycle if their decision is to admit you. So unfortunately, my first step comes with a downfall, which is that if you pick the closest date and you're traveling out of state and specifically flying, it may be really expensive to purchase plane tickets. This is exactly what happened in my case. I was traveling out of state, and when I went on to purchase plane tickets, they were like $600. So after having to pay $600, I decided to try to find a way to cut back from some of the other expenses I would be having, like lodging. When I went onto that school's website, um, under the interview process, I saw that they had an option to sign up for a program called Student Hosting Program. And once I read more about it, I realized that it's the absolute best thing that ever happened to medical school applicants because it matches current applicants with current medical students. I think generally first year and second year students. And those people are able to host you for the night before your interview, which is a blessing considering the fact that hotel prices, depending on the time of the year, can go up to like $300, and you definitely do not want to pay that if you don't have to. So that's what I did, and I saved a lot of money, and I also got to have the absolute two best medical students and humans in general, and they gave me a lot of tips and advice, and they told me all about their medical school experiences and journey. Um, so it was very beneficial. So tip number 2 for you guys is to definitely go to that school's website and look at all of their lodging options and try to get involved with the student hosting program if they have one. For me, for the school I was applying to, it was a very simple process. All I had to do was fill out a one-page form giving my demographics, talking a little bit about myself, and specifying the gender of the roommates I would not mind having. And at the end of the form, they also had a little section where I could talk a little bit about my hobbies, my interests, which I think they used to see who you would get along with. And so it was very simple, and I'd strongly encourage you guys to do this. So in the end, I got matched with 2 people, one guy, one girl, and they were the nicest people ever. They picked me up from the airport, showed me around town, and they also had breakfast with me the morning of my interview. I was lucky enough to have a late interview, which started at like 11. So I woke up early that day, got breakfast with them. We actually went to the school's cafeteria, so that was also nice to see. And then they also took me to one of their classes. It was a histology class, so it was just an amazing experience to be able to feel what it's like to be in their shoes, to be going to that school, to be going to the classes, to eating the food of the school. So it was a really unique experience that I otherwise would not have a chance to have. So it's time for tip number 3, which is to ask as many questions as you can to current medical students while trying to avoid being extremely annoying, which I know can be hard to accomplish, but do your best. I personally asked my student hosts many questions in terms of what they liked and didn't like about the school, what they thought about the curriculum, how much free time they had, how much studying time they needed. I even asked them about how much they paid for rent, because I think it's important to get that information to decide if you're going to live alone or potentially with a roommate. I know that price can be an important factor while deciding that. So if you're not living with student hosts, you can still, during interview day, find medical students to talk to and ask those same questions to them. And if they have time, I'm sure they would love to help you out. So as for tip number 4, if you're gonna get to that location a day before your interview and you end up having an entire day for yourself, I think you should go and check out the location, especially if you haven't been there before, which was exactly my case. So I arrived at the airport around I believe 10:30 or 11 a.m. And my student host picked me up, took me home, where I unpacked and took out my interview suit and hung it up. And then after that, I switched into some comfy clothes and walked downtown. I just took some time to appreciate the people, the culture, the weather, and try to imagine myself living there and ask myself if I would be happy living there. So I think that's something you should ask yourself too. After walking around and getting some food, in my case, I actually got my nails done there. I got home around 7 p.m. and maybe you should come home earlier if your interview starts earlier than mine. I know that most start around 6, 7, or 8 a.m., while mine started at 11. I came home and then I looked over my printed application materials. I had done that before my flight. So I wanted to make sure that everything that was written in my applications I knew by heart and could talk about more in detail if asked. So since this video is past 10 minutes, I'm gonna end it here, but I have more tips to give and I can do that in a second video if you guys would like. Make sure to keep checking my channel. I'm also gonna post some stuff about my personal life, and so there's a lot more to come, and I'm gonna try to post a video every week, potentially on Mondays, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.